Today I'm going to show you how to create a split letter monogram in Affinity Designer, and be sure to stick around to the end for a bonus tip. Let's get started. Hey everybody, so today I'm going to show you how to create a split letter monogram in Affinity Designer. And like I mentioned before, I've got a bonus tip for everyone who sticks around till the end of the video. If you haven't already, you may want to go to the Affinity website and download the trial so you can follow along with this tutorial. I've put a link in the description below if you need to take a minute to download it. If you have an iPad, there is an iPad version, but there is no free trial. The techniques I'm going to show you in this video will work on the iPad, but if you want me to make an iPad version of this tutorial, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll get that done. Now, on with the show. So the first thing you want to do when you open up Affinity Designer is create a new page. Next, you're going to select the font that you want to use for your main letter. In Affinity Designer, when you click on the font menu, on the right side, you can see a preview of what the font looks like. So that way it makes it a little easier to choose the font that you want. So for the capital letter, I'm just going to use Times Roman. So I'm going to click here, I'm just going to type in Times there, click on Times Roman. I'm just going to do the bold letter. I'm going to come over here to the left, I'm going to get my text tool. I'm going to get the artistic text tool. I'm just going to click here and type a capital M. I'm going to come back over here to the tool palette on the left and get my move tool. And I'm just going to click and drag that. And when I drag it, you'll see that it scales it in proportion. And if I hold down the command key, it'll scale it in proportion from the middle. And now we need to adjust the size of the letter so it'll fit your project. So if your project was going to be 7 inches by 5 inches, then you would want to make this letter 5 inches by 5 inches so you have room for the name later on. So I'm just going to make this one 5 inches wide by 4 inches tall. What I'm going to do is come over here to my transform palette, and if you don't have the transform palette open, you can come up to view, go down to studio and choose transform, and that'll open up your transform palette. I just have mine down here in the lower right corner. That's where I like to keep it. I like to keep my character palette and my transform palette here. So then we're going to come over to our transform palette and we're going to change the width and the height, these two numbers on the right. And you'll see this little icon here. It looks like a chain. If you click that and turn it on, you'll see there's two little lines connecting those. So if that's turned on, whenever you change the dimension of one, like if you change the width, it'll change the height in proportion. But that's not what we want. We want to make it 5 inches by 4 inches. So I'm going to uncheck that, and then I can switch this to 4 inches, and then the width will stay the same. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over to the tool palette on the left, and we're going to click this square rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle there over the top. And you want this to be a little bit wider than the letter for your name, and depending on how long your name is, you can make this box wider or shorter. I'm just going to make mine 7 inches wide by 1.75 inches tall, and that way it's going to be about the right height that I want. Okay, so with this box selected, I'm going to come over here to the right to our color palette. You can either use the color palette or the swatches palette. I'm going to click on this little circle and I'm going to remove the color so it has no stroke on it. And then you want to make sure this solid circle is up front, so that way we can change the fill color. I'm just going to move this slider to red, and there we have our box. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're just going to drag and select both pieces. And one thing, when you drag to select, I think by default you have to drag and select the whole image unless you come to the preferences and switch that. I like to switch mine where I can just grab a piece of it and it grabs both of them instead of having to select the whole thing. So you just come up here to the top menu and click on the word Affinity Designer, come down to Preferences, open that, and it'll probably come up like this. Just click on the tools, and right here it says Select Object when intersects with Selection Marquee. Just make sure that's turned on, because if you turn that off, you'll have to select the whole entire piece to select it. And with this turned on, then you can just select a portion of it and it'll select the whole thing. And that's the way I like to work. Some people like to work the other way. So whichever way you want to do it, there's an option there. Okay, so with those two pieces selected, I'm going to come up here to the top of the window, and just to the right of the center of the screen, there's like one little box here that has these two blue bars. That's the alignment tools. Just click on that, and horizontally, we're going to click this to center it. we're going to center the box with the letter, and then we're going to come down here to vertically, and we're going to align it top to bottom with the letter, and now it's centered. And when you're done, click the word done. If you just close the window, it'll just go back to what it was. You have to click done to lock that in. Okay, next we're going to select this red box, and we're going to press Command J on the keyboard, or you can come up to the menu to edit and choose duplicate from the menu. So either of those ways will work. Alright, so I just used Command J to make a duplicate of that. I'm going to change the color of it just so you'll be able to see whenever I change the size of the box. So with this top layer selected, we're going to come back over here to our transform palette, and we want to change that to 1.5 inches. But if you'll look over here to your left on the transform palette, you'll see a little square with 9 boxes. So whichever one of these boxes is selected is going to be the anchor point. So if we have this top left box highlighted, whenever I change the size of this to 1.5, it just moves the box up because it's anchored to the top left. Same thing if it's the bottom, any of these bottom buttons are selected and you do 1.5, it's just going to move it down, but we want it centered. So I'm going to click this center button, and I'm going to change this to 1.5, and you'll see it just moves it in on the top and the bottom. Another thing you can do is, in the transform palette, if you know how much you want to reduce an object by, you can click here, just leave the 1.75 IN, and then just click to the right of that. And then if you want to subtract a certain amount from that, you can just do minus 0.25 and hit the return key, and it'll do the math for you. I know, right? If only it could do algebra, right? But seriously, this will work the same way. Let me drag a copy off over here. But this will work the same way. If you want to add some to it, you can just press plus 0.5 and it'll add to it. If you want to double the size, if you wanted to go from 2 inches to 4 inches, you could just use the asterisk key. You could just hold shift and hit the 8 key to get the asterisk for multiply. And then you could put the number you want to multiply it by. Let's just say 3. And then it'll do the math for you and make that 6 inches. And then if you want to divide it, you can just do the backslash key for divide, and we'll just hit 3 again, and now it's 2 inches again. So that's pretty cool. If you don't want to have to do the math in your head, you can just let the transform palette do the math for you. Okay, so that's about enough math for today. Let's get back to the project. Let me delete that. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to weld the letter to this red box behind. And you can either click on the letter and then hold shift and click the box to select them both. Or you can come over here in the layers palette. You can click on the layer for the letter. You can hold shift and click on the layer for the red square. And that way it'll select them both. But either way you want to do that, it'll work. Now what we want to do is come up here to the top right of our screen. And you'll see these 5 little buttons. And the first one is add. The second one is subtract. The third one is intersect. The fourth one is divide. And the 5th one is combine. So if you'll notice, the pieces that are blue are the pieces that are going to remain. So if we add, you'll see it's going to just combine everything together. If you subtract, it's going to knock the gray out and leave this blue part. Same thing with these other 3. Whatever's gray is going to get deleted. Whatever's blue is going to be what's kept. The divide one will just cut it into pieces. And then the last one will keep the outer blue pieces and subtract the middle part. So what we want to do with these 2 pieces selected is we're going to add those or join those together. So we click the add button, and now you see that we've got those added together. And I know it knocked out the color, so let's just select the color again over here on the color wheel. Now what you want to do is select both of these pieces, the letter and the purple piece. We're going to come back up here to the top and we're going to subtract the purple from the orange. And there we have our knockout. So that's really simple. It takes really no time to do that. So the next thing we need to do is add the name to this. So I'm going to go up here to the tool palette on the left, click back on my text tool, and I'm going to top out a name. I'm just going to use McKenna. Now I'm just going to come up here to the tools palette and select my move tool. And I'm just going to click on one corner, make that a little bigger, just kind of fit it in there. And if you want this kind of font in here, you can leave this font in here. But I think the scripty fonts look cool, so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to my character palette. And again, if you don't have the character palette open, just come up here to View and go to Studio and open your character palette. And I'm going to click in this little box here, and I'm going to use a font called Black Sword. And you can download this font for free from DaFont if you want it. And I'm just going to center that in the box, make that a little smaller. Alright, so that looks pretty good. It's pretty well spaced out, but I want to move the A little bit closer to the M. And one thing we could do is convert this to outlines and ungroup it and then manually move it. Or another way you can do it is you can get the text tool and you can just select the M and come over here to your character palette and you can adjust the tracking. So just hold that down and move that a little closer to the M. Okay, so the reason you have to select the M is because that tells it you want to just move everything closer to the M. If you don't select anything, if you just select the box and you do the tracking, it moves everything. So that's not what I want. I just wanted to move that A a little bit. Now I'm just going to adjust this so it's even with the edges. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is, well, I mean pretty much you're done at this point because you've got the letter, you've got the name. But in order to be able to cut this on your cutter, we need to come up here to the layer menu, come down to convert to curves, and that way this is no longer a font, it's just a graphic. You can't, select it and retype it. And that's pretty much it. That's your basic split letter design right there. And we can change the colors here. I think I'm going to change that to like a blue, change this to maybe like a pink. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to show you a few ways you can make this even better. So what we can do, first of all, before I do that, let me just make a copy. If I hold Option, click and drag, it'll make a copy. And I'll just reduce the size down a little bit. Now I'm going to make this one bigger so we can see it. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click this name. And what we want to do is we want to knock out part of these letters so it looks like the letters wrap around these bars. I'd like to knock out part of this K, but it's right up against there, so I want to move this part of the letter down a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is click on the name. I want to come up to Layer, Ungroup All. Now each letter is an individual letter. Let me blow this up a little more. Now I want to grab this node tool from the tool palette on the left, and I want to select these nodes here. So I'm just going to click here and drag to select those. So now what I want to do is come up here. I want to click on one of those nodes with this black tool. I'm just going to drag that straight down a little bit. That way we've got a little space in between there for it to wrap around, and then just click off of it. That's all we need to do. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. I'm going to come back over here to the left to the tool palette. I'm going to grab my pen tool right here. And you want to make sure you have snapping turned on. So at the top of the screen, you'll see this little magnet. So you can just click that and turn snapping on. And then you can come over here kind of in the middle where it says snap, and you can turn off or on the different kinds of snapping that you want. So what we want to do is we want to just create a box here. So with our pen tool, we can just click and just make sure you snap to that line and click just to make a box, and it'll snap to this outside line here, so you'll know you're right on the edge. Then I want to fill that with a color, and there you have it. So now we want to draw a box around this part of the M. Let's grab our pen tool again, click, click, just draw a little box around it, add our color, there you go. So now I just need to do one more. Come over here to the K, we're just going to click there, then add a color, and there you go. We got all three of those pieces covered up, and what we want to do is not actually knock those out of the name. So I'm going to click on one, I'm going to hold Shift and click the other two. Now I'm going to come up here to our Pathfinder tools. I'm going to click Add to weld those together. Now they're all just one piece. And what we need to do is weld all these letters together. So I'm going to just select all those letters. And you'll see here they're kind of overlapping. We need to weld those together. So select the whole name, come up to the Pathfinder, click Add to weld that together. Now you'll see they're not overlapping anymore. They're actually all one piece. Now we can select our pieces and select our name. Come up here and click Subtract, and now it knocks all three of those pieces out. So now it looks like the letter is wrapping around that bar a little bit, just to give it a little added dimension, So that's one way to enhance your design a little bit. So let me move that over here. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hold Option, click, and drag a copy over here. I'm going to make that bigger. Holding Shift Command to make it bigger from the middle. Now what we want to do is click on the name. Make sure this name is welded together. I'm going to do Ungroup. I'm going to come over here and weld that together. While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and do this one over here too. Ungroup, and then weld that one together. Alright, so what we want to do is create a little knockout around the name. So I'm going to click on the name. I'm going to come over to the Layers palette. I'm going to change the color of this because we got a couple of pink ones over here. I'm just going to change the color to something else, like this orange maybe. So after we change the color, we want to press Command J to make a duplicate of that. I'm just going to hide that one for a minute, and we're going to click on that top one. So with that selected, I'm going to get my stroke. I'm going to bring the stroke to the front. I'm going to choose a different color for the stroke just so we can see it. And what we want to do is just increase the stroke to make a little knockout. So if I want a 3-point stroke, but if I put this on 3, let me blow this up a little bit. You can see this little blue line here. This little blue line is actually the edge of the orange. So half of the stroke is on the outside and half of the stroke is on the inside. Now there is a feature here in the stroke palette where you can align the stroke to the outside like that. So then this is the edge of the orange and this is the edge of the green. But for this purpose, if we try to do it this way, the stroke won't work properly. So we need to leave it centered like that. So if I do a 3-point stroke, there's 1.5 on the inside, 1.5 on the outside. So I actually need to make this 6-point stroke. So there's 3 to the outside and 3 to the inside. Hopefully that'll make sense. So let me zoom back out. And now what I want to do is make sure this whole thing is selected. I want to come up here to my layers menu and I want to expand stroke. And now you'll see that it separated the stroke from the letters. So let me just Command Z to move that back. Now I want to click and select that whole thing to select everything. I want to come up here to my Pathfinder tools and I want to add or weld those pieces together and make that all one piece. The next thing you want to do is click on your letter and click on that stroke you just made. We're going to come back up to the Pathfinder and we're going to hit Subtract to knock that out. So now you'll see that we have these knockouts in the letter. And when we come here and turn our name back on, it fits perfectly inside there. So that's just another thing you can do to kind of jazz up your design a little bit. Just knock that out a little bit. Alright, so then the last way we're going to do it is we're just going to add back the line here to the background. So that way it kind of makes this look like it's wrapping around like the first one. So we'll have the wrap around and the knockout. So again, we're going to get our pen tool, blow that up a little bit, and I didn't do this K like I did the first one, so I'm just going to do the M. So I'm just going to click on right on that line. Let me turn that stroke off. I want to do a fill color. So we got that one done. Then we'll do this one. And when you're working with this pen tool, like if you're drawing a box or drawing a line or whatever, and you need to go back and make an adjustment, if you hold down the Command key, it'll turn that pen into a node tool, and then you can just click that and move it. You can just click these nodes and move them, and then once you release that Command key, it goes back to the pen tool. And whichever node is blue, like this one, it'll start drawing from that point again. Okay, alright, let me delete that. So let me click my box here, and I'm going to add the color to that. Now I'm going to, with that one selected, I'm going to hold Shift, select that one, weld those together. So now what I want to do is, with these selected, I'm just going to do Command C to make a copy of that. And now I want to leave those selected and click on the letter in the back, and I want to weld those together. And you'll see it looks like it's knocked out, but it's really not. So what we want to do is, we want to paste those little knockouts back in there that we made a copy of, and then we want to just select those and the name, and we'll subtract that, and now they're knocked out. So that way when you do it, you can put the letter down first, and then this will line up. You can line that up when you make your design on your shirt or whatever you're making, you can line that up. So those are 4 different ways you can do it, make your designs look a little more unique. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video now. I've got a few more things I want to show you, but think I'm just going to do a second video so this one's not too long, but I'm going to show you how you can bling out your monogram designs. You can practice on this for a few days, and then when that one's up, then you can bling it out. So anyway, I guess that's about all I have for right now. What? Oh yeah. I forgot. I told you there would be a bonus tip, didn't I? All right, let me move this up out of the way. And this doesn't really have anything to do with a split letter. It's just something kind of cool I thought I would show you. So I'm going to go over here to my tool palette and I'm going to grab a square. I'm going to make a square here. Make sure it's a perfect square. I'll come over here to my transform palette. I'm just going to make it 2 inches by 2 inches. And instead of fill color, we want to just have a stroke. So I'm just going to hit this little double-sided arrow to change the fill to the stroke. And now I'm going to blow up that stroke really big. And you'll see we have these rounded corners, but we want square corners. So over here in the stroke palette where it says join, we want to click this third one so it'll have square edges. And now I'm going to drag down these little rulers, or guides I mean. I'm going to put those right there in the middle. And now what I want to do is come up to layer and convert that to a curve. Now I'm going to grab my node tool and I'm going to click on that line. You see right below that arrow, when I get on that line, it has like a little squiggly. When you see that squiggly, you can click and add a node. So I'm going to add a node there. I'm going to add a node there, there, and there. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to click and I want to select both of those middle nodes. Then I'm going to hold shift and click up here at the top and drag and select those 2 middle nodes there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the top of the screen where it says action. I'm going to click this first button where it says break curve. Click that. And you didn't really see anything happen, but you want to make sure in the stroke palette you have the cap turned on with the round cap. Now I'm going to get my move tool. I'm just going to select these. I'm going to select these 2. And I'm going to move those away. I'm going to select these 2. I'm going to move those away. Now I'm going to select these 2 side ones and move those away. Whoops. I'm going to move those away. And you'll see that I made 4 hearts out of a square. So once you have those done, you can select them all, come up to layer, and you can expand the stroke. And now you can just fill them with whatever color you want. And you have little homemade hearts. I just thought that was kind of cool. And I just thought I would just show y'all real quick how to do that. Okay, so now I really got to get out of here so you can go create more cool designs with Affinity Designer. So if you like this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel so you'll know when the next videos are released. And remember to click the little bell icon to turn on the notifications. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you want to follow me on social media, all the links are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.